ויחי יעקב בארץ מצרים 17 שנה. ויהי ימי יעקב שני חייו 7 שנים ו40 שנה. ויקרבו ימי ישראל למות. ויקרא לבנו ליוסף ויאמר לו, אם נא מצאתי חן בעיניך, שים נא ידיך תחת ירכי, ועשית עמדי חסד ואמת, אל נא תחרבני במצרים, ושכבתי עם אבותי, ונשאתני במצרים, וקברתני בקבורתם. ויאמר אנוכי אעשה כדבריך. ויאמר השבה לי, וישבה לו, וישתחו ישראל על ראש המיטה. Wait, there's more.
Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years, and the days of Jacob, the years of his life, were 147 years. The time approached for Israel to die, so he called for his son, for Joseph, and said to him, Please, if I have found favor in your eyes, please place your hand under my thigh and do kindness and truth with me. Please do not bury me in Egypt. And I will lie down with my fathers, and you shall transport me out of Egypt, and bury me in their grave. He said, I will do it in accordance with your words. He said, Swear to me. And he swore to him. And Israel prostrated himself toward the head of the bed.
Amen and amen.
Said Jacob was still Joseph's loyalty, and therefore he made him swear. I don't agree with that at all. Joseph was not allowed to leave Egypt. He was too important. So only if he'd made a deathbed oath to his father, that would be the only thing that would cut it, with the Pharaoh.
That's good. So you're saying Jacob was actually looking out for Joseph and saying, swear to me that you do this, and so that you can, that's good. Yeah, okay, that's good. Anybody else? No? Okay, Rhonda? Eloise. Right. Okay, hold on one second, Rhonda. Raise your hand so she can see where you're at. Okay, here we go.
In Genesis 49, Genesis 49, verse 10, when it's describing Yeshua, it was interesting because to him shall be the obedience of the peoples. And I wondered if that word was goyim, but it's not. It's so it means God's peoples. But it's interesting because I was trying to justify Yeshua coming with the Gentiles through a Gentile opening. So anyway, that jumped out at me.
Yeah.
And you're talking about Yehuda, right?
Yes. Well,
Judah.
Ephraim. Yehuda part is, Yeshua is from
He's
that
from the tribe of Judah, yes.
But the peoples, that word peoples, I had wondered if it was nations, but it's not.
Yeah.
Because he accompanies, there's a scripture that talks about, in Deuteronomy 30, verse 3, all Bibles mistranslate it. It says that God will restore your fortunes, but the Hebrew actually reads that God himself will return with the returnees. And I learned that, so that I look for that pattern to be repeated in other places. That's why I was looking that up. 30.
Yeah, so this is about, so this is basically saying that Judah was going to rule over the tribes of Israel, over the nation of Israel. Yeah. Yep. And so I see what you're saying, because you're saying that you were hoping that the people was goyim, was nations, rather than like as in the people of Israel. And so yeah. So this is mostly, almost exclusively about Israel, but I think at the same time, well, whatever, we can leave that. Yeah. All right. Is there another hand we had? No? Okay. Zechariah.
So it does actually say goyim instead of ammo for chapter 48, verse 19, when it talks about Israel blessing Joseph's children, and he puts his right hand on the younger.
Right, for nations. Right, his descendants will grow into nations. All right. Anybody else? Okay. Stacy.
Is it on?
It
Okay.
takes a second.
I just
yeah.
want to say what a beautiful thing it is that God chose Ephraim and Manasseh, and they are children of Joseph and the Egyptian woman. And what a beautiful picture that is, if we're going to talk about, right, Israel and the nations right there, and that God incorporated those two children as tribes of Israel. That is a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Well, that kind of speaks to the idea of the one new man, right? Where Jew and Gentile worshiping together side by side as one people, as one body. Yeah, that's awesome.
Beautiful.
Right. So I was hoping to read down that far before we got before we were done here today. All right. Anything else about this promise? And all right. So yeah. So all right. We're gonna move on. All right. I was trying to decide, like, when you're up here, it's hard to think about, okay, should I actually expound on that? Should I say this is what the rabbi says? Should I move on? Should we? Okay. So I'll just say that it's held that those 17 years were the best years of Yaakov's life, right? Where he had his son restored to him, his kids were with him. They were no longer like in this wilderness. They were in the land of Goshen. Everything was green and lush, and he finally had some kind of ease, right? His life up to this point had been very difficult, we'll say. When Pharaoh says, "How old are you?" He says, "The years of your servant have been few and oh gosh, I just had it. Basically, been terrible." And they're 130 years. I'm not nearly as old as my father or my grandfather. Few and evil. That's what he says. Few and evil have been the days of your servant. And so now it's 147 years. He's 17 years later, and he doesn't have that sourness anymore. Now he's tasted sweetness. He's as I said, his son returned to him, and now he's saying, even in this sweetness, even having this, I still need to go back and be buried in the promised land, the land that Adonai swore to my grandfather, my father, and to myself. And so, anyway, okay, so chapter 48. Verse 1, it says, a while later, someone told Yosef that his father was ill. He took with him his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, Manasseh and Ephraim. And Yaakov was told, here comes your son Yosef. Jacob was told, here comes your son Joseph. Israel gathered his strength and sat up in bed. Yaakov said to Yosef, El Shaddai appeared to me at Luz in the sight of Canaan, in the land of Canaan, and blessed me, saying to me, I will make you fruitful and numerous. I will make of you a group of peoples, and I will give this land to your descendants to possess forever. Now your two sons, he's talking to Joseph now, who were born to you in the land of Egypt before I came to you in Egypt, are mine. He's adopting them. Ephraim and Manasseh will be as much mine as Reuben and Shimon are. The children born to you after them will be yours, but for purposes of inheritance, they are to be counted with their older brothers. Right? So this is the idea of adoption. This is where the Jewish idea of adoption comes in, where there's no distinction between the adopted child and the natural-born child, that there's to be no distinction. They're to be the same. So he says, the children that are born after these you can have, but these two are mine. He's adopting them. Now as for me, verse 7, when I came to Padan, Rachel died suddenly as we were traveling through the land of Canaan while we were still some distance from Ephrathah. So I buried her there on the way to Ephrath, also known as Beit Lechem. This must sound familiar. We have one Messiah born in Beit Lechem, also known as Bethlehem. Then Israel noticed Joseph's sons. Before I go on, no, we'll come back. Okay. Then Israel noticed Joseph's sons and asked, whose are these? Joseph answered his father, they are my sons whom God has given me here. Yaakov replied, I want you to bring them here to me so that I can bless them. Now Israel's eyes were dim with age, so he could not see, right? So he knew that these people were there. That's why it wasn't that he didn't know his grandchildren. It was that he couldn't tell who was standing there, right? They were quiet. So his eyes grew dim, so he could not see. Joseph brought his sons near to him, to Jacob, to Israel, and he kissed them and embraced them. Israel said to Joseph, I never expected to even see you again, but God has allowed me to see your children too. Joseph brought them out from between his legs and prostrated himself on the ground. And Joseph took them both, Ephraim in his right hand toward Israel's left hand, and Manasseh in his left hand toward Israel's right hand, and brought them near to him. But Israel put out his right hand and laid it on the hand of the younger one, Ephraim, put his left hand on the head of Manasseh. He intentionally crossed his hands, even though Manasseh was the firstborn. Then he blessed Yosef. Okay, he blessing these two as one. The God in whose presence my fathers Abraham and Yitzhak lived, the God who has been my own shepherd all my life long to this day, the angel who has rescued me from all harms, bless the boys. Right? He's not saying I'm blessing, he's saying may God bless them. This is very reminiscent of the Aaronic benediction. May they remember who I am and what I stand for, and likewise my fathers, Abraham and Yitzhak, who they were and what they stood for, and may they grow into teeming multitudes on the earth. All right, so there's something important that's going on here that I want to come back to, the verse 7, right? It says, now as for me, when I came to Padan, Rachel died suddenly as we were traveling through the land of Canaan while we were still some distance from Ephrath. So I buried her there on the way to Ephrath, right? To Ephrathah, to Bethlehem. He's saying we were almost there and I didn't bury her in that place, right? And this is, this is where he's saying, take me back to the cave of Machpelah, like bury me in the land, all this. He's like, I think that the rabbis talk about he regretted not taking her all the way, that he regretted like not putting the effort in to bring her to Bethlehem, even though he was close. And so he's saying, please, in some way, I think he's saying, don't repeat my mistake. He's saying, please bring me to the proper burial place. And then there's another perspective that says, well, he buried her there because of his prophetic gifting, and he could see that when Israel would be carried away captive, that then Rachel would come out and mourn and lament and intercede for them as they were being carried off to captivity. And then now when you hear that, you might think, oh, well, that kind of sounds, I don't know, it sounds like the dead are like coming alive. No, like they don't die, right? So if you notice, Israel is being gathered to his people when he died. That we see that the patriarchs, it says that the time for Israel's death came. It doesn't say that the time for Israel to die came. And so Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, their bodies passed, but they didn't die themselves. Does this make sense? Right? Yeshua tells the scribes when he's arguing with them, he says, didn't you read that God is the God of the living and not the dead? Because he's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They're alive. They're not dead. So anyway, so here he is. He's saying, let my burial place be with my father and my grandfather, where I buried Leah. And so he's like, please don't repeat my mistake. And so Joseph swears, and he does it. He follows through. Okay. There's more we could say. So does anybody have any other thoughts, anything that comes to mind from this portion, chapter 48, verses 1 to 16? Well then, yeah, it's on.
That he is apologizing to Joseph. Leah is buried at Machpelah. Raquel is not. And he is apologizing to his favorite son that he wants to be laid to rest with Leah. Because that old family, tension, it still exists. And that he's trying to explain to his son, I didn't have a choice at that time. I didn't. The body would have putrefied before I could have ever got it to the proper place. I'm so sorry. It's a piece of unfinished business between him and Yosef.
Yeah.
That just makes sense to me, because as you're passing on, you want to get things in order. And you want to explain things that were hard or painful and why you did them, so that you can make some peace with your offspring.
Right. So also okay. So let me go ahead and go over there, and I'll say my thing, and then you can. So it says, "Do me this kindness and a truth," right? It's not the same in this translation, and I think that he's asking Yosef to do something purely just out of kindness for his father, because Yosef gets nothing out of it. And kind of piggybacking on what Isabel was saying about Israel is apologizing to his favorite son, like, please bury me with not your mother, right? But bury me with my other wife. That, I think, would have been very difficult for Yosef, right? Because, well, no, I mean, you're my mom's husband. Like, you guys should be together. And yet he honors his father's wishes. And so I think that was a very, like, it was very altruistic for him to do, because Joseph gets nothing out of the deal. He honors his father's wishes, and it seems like he doesn't even get, it's his brothers still, even with this, are concerned that Joseph is going to turn on them, even though he's burying his father with their mother. He's showing the kindness. He's doing everything he can to to demonstrate really just a pure heart. And they still are. It's so much of, I would think, of projection, right? Of things that they're dealing with, and they're putting it on him. And so, anyway, getting back to where we were kind of starting out, Joseph was doing this out of just pure kindness, and he swore his father in truth, yes, I will do this, and he received nothing for it.
Well, as you were teaching, the thought came to me about Raquel was cursed because she stole her father's gods. So she couldn't go into the promised land. And I have a question. Do you think that he knew that? And did the children know that?
I mean, that is in, like, it. So the difficulty I have with that is that he's like, I was just basically saying I was a little ways away from Bethlehem, right? From Bethlehem, which is very much to the interior of Israel. So I think that she was in there. You want to? I'll let you answer. Then I'll come back if I need to.
So Rachel did take her father's idols, but it was Yaakov who said, if you find anything here that doesn't belong to you, that person will die.
Right. So you're saying that he pronounced the curse on her.
Yaakov is the one who did.
Yes. And we have the similar thing that happened with Saul and Jonathan, right? When Saul has the army and they're marching and everybody's starving, he's like, basically cursed to be the person who eats of anything and he will die and all this. And he didn't know. And Jonathan didn't hear it. He goes and eats the honey and brings it to people and they won't eat. And they're like, didn't you hear your dad's pronunciation? And so he ends up dying in battle not too long after that. So we have that similar idea. I feel like this is I don't have a really great answer as to like how this is good. I think that this demonstrates that we aren't to be careless with our words, right? And Jacob made that pronouncement thinking that nobody had taken anything, thinking that everything was pure and blameless, and not realizing, I think some of the rabbis say that Rachel took the gods because she was trying to prevent her dad from worshiping them instead of the true God. We see later on that she and Leah are still worshiping these gods, and Jacob says, I can't remember, they came to the tree. I don't know if it was in Mamre or where, but they come, and he says, we're going to serve the God of Abraham and Jacob, or excuse me, Abraham and Isaac now, and so get rid of those gods. They buried them under the tree. So I think that he perhaps made the mistake of thinking that everybody was as pure-hearted as he was. And I know everybody says, oh, well, Jacob, he was a supplanter. No, I'm sorry. Esau says that Jacob is a supplanter. Jacob lived in the tents. He was a righteous man. He did what his parents asked of him. He tried to, we see him tricking his father under duress, and his mother basically pushing him and saying, you will do this, and let the curse be on me, and all this kind of stuff. So we're really kind of branching out here. But anyway, so I guess the point is not to make a rash pronouncement, right? This is what it says in Ecclesiastes, right? When you're in the presence of God, keep your mouth shut, right? Don't say anything that you're going to regret. Don't overpromise and underdeliver. Don't do any of these things. Better just to keep your mouth shut and not to pronounce it than to pronounce and not make good. So we have this example of a mistake that Yaakov made, and it cost him his favorite basically the favorite person in the world. So let that be a lesson, I guess. All right. Tracy. All right. And as you're coming to Tracy, Yeshua says that we will give give an account for every careless word that we speak, right? So, right here. It still applies to us today.
Well, I kind of think that both Jacob and Joseph actually did very well when you add everything up.
Oh, sure.
Joseph ends up giving extra to his father, and he actually gets an extra portion. Happens just a little bit later on. And then when you look at the life of Jacob, he lived 147 years. And mathematically, that's 7 times 7 and times 3. And the numbers just are fantastically spiritual, so I thought I'd go ahead and share that. That's all.
Isabel.
First 3 sons do not get a blessing. Each of them gets a curse.
Mm-hmm.
And we believe, that Yaakov, Israel, is speaking prophetically, of the times to come. And really, ultimately, of the Messianic era.
Right.
And because we know son number 4 is going to get a great blessing, and out of him will come David, and out of David will come Mashiach.
Mm-hmm.
But the first 3 sons are dealt with in a very summary fashion, and they don't walk away with a blessing.
Right. Actions have consequences, right? And I think it could have been that this is what Reuben talks about. His father says took his concubine, and he says, Simeon and Levi, like these guys are angry and they wiped out this town, and I wonder if that disqualified them from the kingship in Israel, disqualified their descendants and their lineage, right? Because and then we see how Judah, right, came. So Judah then comes and goes through this transformation of let's kill our brother, and then oh no, take me instead of my brother, and he really goes through a transformation and rises to the level of a leader, right, within his family. When Reuben just, I don't know what to say about Reuben. Very, very, very difficult, right? He couldn't, he hardly even stood up to his brothers when they're trying to kill. Okay, anyway. So we see that he doesn't get to lead because he wasn't leadership quality. He didn't rise to that. And then his Simeon and Levi were angry, and Judah, though, Judah demonstrated on, and he got a great blessing. Okay, any other comments on this section that we've read? Because I'm going to read the next section. We're getting late on time. Is anybody? Okay.
Thank you. Okay, I'm confused, but I have a quick question. Okay, is Bethlehem the same as Ephrath? They're close by?
Well, no. So so Bethlehem is what Ephrath became known as, and then Ephrathah became like a larger area that Bethlehem was within.
Okay. So Rachel, Leah, and Jacob. So where was Jacob buried?
He was in the cave of Machpelah in Canaan, in Hebron, with Abraham, Isaac, and Leah.
And Leah was buried there. But yes. Rachel was buried near Bethlehem
near
or
Bethlehem,
in Bethlehem?
Not in, near.
Near. But like in the land of Israel. Like,
yes.
Does that count as the promised land?
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's very close to, it's well within Israel. Okay, so let's finish out chapter 48. When Yosef saw that his father was laying, I was going to say something. Okay, this is a great spot. When Yosef saw that his father was laying his right hand on Ephraim's head, it displeased him right? And he lifted his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's hand and placed it instead on Manasseh's head, right? Manasseh was the older. Yosef said to his father, "Don't do it that way, my father, for this one is the firstborn. Put your right hand on his head." But his father refused and said, "I know, my son, I know it. He too will become a people, and he too will be great. Nevertheless, his younger brother will be greater than he, and his descendants will grow into many nations." Then he added this blessing on them that day. "Israel will speak of you in their own blessings by saying, 'May God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh.' Thus he put Ephraim ahead of Manasseh." Then Israel then said to Yosef, "You see that I am dying, but God will be with you and will bring you back to the land of your ancestors. Moreover, I am giving to you Shechem more than to your brothers. I captured it from the Amorites, with my sword and bow." Okay, so there's a few things here. So the first thing is that, remember, he's saying that. Let me find. May they remember. He's talking about the boys, and he says, "May they remember who I am and what I stand for. Likewise, my fathers Abraham and Isaac, who they were and what they stood for. May they grow into teeming multitudes on the earth." Okay, so then he says. He crosses his hands. We're going to get to that in a minute. But he says that Israel will speak of you in their own blessing, saying, "May God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh." Every Friday night, Jewish fathers put their hands on the heads of their children and bless them. And their boys, specifically their boys, say, may God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh. Okay, this is in keeping with this. But may God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh doesn't mean make you like Ephraim and Manasseh. What it means is, may he make you like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It means, may the things that they stood for, may their faith, may their obedience, may their repentance, may all this, may you be like that. May they live on in you, right? And so it's summed up in Ephraim and Manasseh, so this is what this comes back to. This is where that blessing comes from. And it's also very interesting, as Stacy mentioned, that Ephraim and Manasseh were half Jewish and half Gentile, right? And so I think that there's a lot of prophetic significance to that. I don't want to get too much into that, but it's interesting, it's of note. The other thing that I wanted to say, and then I'll open it to everybody else, I know I should go the other way, but this time I'm going this way, is Israel was blind, right? It said his eyes grew dim, he couldn't see. He couldn't even see the kids standing right arm's length away from him. He's like, "Who are these guys?" And so he says, "Bring them to me." So he brought them, and Joseph put the older ones so that Jacob's right hand would be on his head and his left hand would be on the younger's head. And then he switches them, right? And then Joseph's like, no, I put them right. Put them back. Put your hands back. He's like, "No, I know what I'm doing." And there's a very big difference here, because we see that when the time came for Isaac to be gathered to his people, he was blind. And he tells his son, "Go get me that stuff I like to eat so that I can bless you, so that I'll be happy and I can bless you." And the reason this is my thought, but that the reason that that Rebecca had to intervene, that she had to say, "Listen, kid, you're going to go in there and you're going to do this, and you're going to listen to your mother," right? Was because Isaac had grown blind spiritually, not just physically, right? The physical was an expression of a spiritual blindness that he had grown into. We see that he didn't start off that way. When he was younger, he prayed for his wife. She conceived, like he was a very righteous man, all this. By the end of his life, he'd grown spiritually blind. And so Jacob, Israel, is telling his son, "My eyes may not work, but I'm still can see. My eyes may not work, but I am not blind. I know what I'm doing, and he's operating prophetically. There's a very big difference between Isaac and Jacob, because Jacob doesn't just know what he's doing, but he pronounces these blessings. He sees into the future. He prophesies over each of his children and to their descendants, all the way to the end of days. He is with it, and he has committed himself. When he committed himself to the God of Abraham and Isaac, he did it with his whole heart. And he never forsook that. He never quit seeking God. He never quit relying on him. And so, even though physically, like we see this difference between Isaac and Jacob, that I think Isaac had grown comfortable. He'd gotten to a place of complacency, and he didn't realize that his sight left him a little bit at a time until he was blind. And on the other hand, Israel tells Pharaoh, "Few and evil have been the days of your servant, and they haven't attained to the days of the life of my forefathers." And I think one thing that he's saying is, I've had to keep fighting for everything. I haven't been able to rest. I haven't been able to coast. I haven't been able to any of this. I have had to work constantly. But I think that difficulty in his life kept pushing him towards Hashem, kept pushing him towards the Lord, that he wouldn't be able to rest, but he would have to trust in him. And that was a big difference between Isaac and Jacob. And so here we have, at the end of his life, he's saying, I know what I'm doing. Thank you for watching out for me, but I know what I'm doing, and this is why I'm doing it. Okay, that's my spiel. Does somebody else have anything they want to say? Karen, I can see the wheels turning.
I just have a bunch of questions, so I'll just throw them all out there. So one, I think it's super interesting that humanly, the fathers always seem emotionally invested in getting the eldest son and pronouncing the blessing on the eldest son. Why is that? And then God seems to pick the younger son. It's man's authority versus God's authority. God's like, nope, it's not going to be. So God gets to choose. That's interesting. Another thing, so there seems to be some sort of real spiritual benefit. You're getting something when your parent is pronouncing these, the patriarchs are pronouncing these blessings on their children. It's real. They have this power to pronounce these blessings on their kids, and their kids are getting real benefit. So that's super interesting. The Bible doesn't seem to totally explain how that works, but do we as parents still have that power? You know what I'm saying? I don't know. And then my other question, this is probably a little bit premature, but when it goes into all the different kids, and these are the prophecy of the last days, so these are the last days. I know some of these we can identify now, with the scepter, but I'm just curious about all the rest of them.
Yeah, so I'll go backwards. So we actually do see this actually played out. It is for the last days. So here's the thing with biblical prophecy. Biblical prophecy almost always has more than one fulfillment, right? It's fulfilled, and it's fulfilled, and it's fulfilled. And so we've already seen when Israel came into the land, and they grew and multiplied and became a strong nation with all these different tribes and everything, we saw each of these fulfilled, right? When they left Egypt, 240-ish years later or whatever, or I guess it would be, 40, 30, 7, 23, 223. Sorry, I'm not good on the fly with math. Anyway, 223-ish years later, that then they leave. They have the 40 years of wandering, and they come into the land. When they divide the land, that it falls actually according to these pronouncements, right? With the ones like Zebulun, right, was by the sea, and so it was not just a happenstance, but it has been fulfilled, and I think that probably at the end of days it won't. How do I say this? I don't want to say it won't matter, but it will have less need, right? Because okay, Asher's food is rich. He will provide food fit for a king. And Naphtali is a doe set free that bears beautiful fawns. Like, prolific, beautiful people. Like, it's when we're in the Messianic era, everybody's food is going to be rich. Everybody's, like, it's so the blessings will be not just, it's hard for me to say that, I guess, because God still makes a distinction between people, but I'm rambling a little bit because you're hearing me process. I do it with my mouth. Some people think with their head, I think with my mouth. So yeah, to me, the biggest thing that comes out is from Judah, and that never ends, and partially because of God's, not just because of this pronouncement, but because of God's covenant with David, right? That he would always have a descendant on the throne, and he does that through the Messiah who will reign forever. So at some point, right, Rav Shaul says that all these things will pass away. Prophecy will cease. But he says, faith, hope, and love, and love is the greatest, because at some point all these others will disappear, but love will always persist, always remain. So this won't always persist through eternity, right? But we have seen it fulfilled multiple times. Okay, so that's the first question. The second spiritual benefit to blessing of the fathers to their children, right? And we can see this, and this is what we see with Isaac and Esau. He's like, oh, Father, do you have just one blessing? He's like, well, I've made him your master, and I've satisfied him with the fat of the land and the earth, and all this, like, and yeah, do we as parents, as people today, do we have this same authority? Do we have the same power? Yeah, life and death is in the power of the tongue. Those who love it will eat its fruit. This is one reason why it is so important to speak life to your children. And I have to say that I wish that my wife and I were better at this. This is something that we need to work on. And something we talk about and we try. It's just, anyway, so we do still have this. And this is, I think, if you notice, I've seen this in my own extended family, where in my family, there were a lot of things that my parents did wrong, all this kind of stuff. But my mom, oh, sorry, never said, she never said, you're so stupid. She never said, you'll never this, you'll never, like, she was never down-putting. And so I can see other families within our tree that was not true. And let's just say we're all in different places, and they're not, I don't want to, like, my nuclear family growing up, all of us are doing very well. Even if we're not making a lot of money, we're doing well with relationships, with our, like, they're complete people, right? I can't say that about the other families. And so I've seen that. Then the idea of the eldest, and was it God's authority versus man's authority? Because it seems like men are trying to pick the older, and God. So it's actually a godly thing, right? That God says that the firstborn gets a double portion, right? A double portion, double inheritance. If you have 3 kids, you divide whatever you have by 4, and you give the first one 2, and then the rest get 1 portion. The difference is that God isn't strictly bound by the rules, right? And He knows the heart, and He says, "Oh, this I'm doing differently." And I think that when God does that, it's meant as an asterisk or bolding or something, like calling attention. Hey, check this out. This isn't following the pattern the way that it should go, and I have a reason for this, so watch. And I think also with that, the firstborn generally doesn't just get more blessing. The firstborn has more responsibility, right? The firstborn is more responsible to the rest of the family. The firstborn is to take care of the parents, and to, like, there's all these things that go with that. So it's both the blessing as well as the responsibility. Yeah. Okay. There were a couple of hands. Okay. We're going to go over here to Rhonda, and then we'll come back to Isaac. And we were just about done here. Man. One chapter.
I just wanted to add the physiology aspect of blessings. Emoto, I think it's Masuro Emoto, published a book called Messages in Water, and he would freeze water, and as it began to crystallize, he began speaking over the water, and it changes the shape of the crystals. And so he even used the words raka, you fool, and the water would be stunted, and rock music would make the crystals be stunted. But if you said love and gratitude, then they would be these beautiful, beautiful shapes. And when we're born, we're like 90% water. By the time we die, we're down in the 60 percentile level. But it's interesting because when you speak to somebody, they have that water in their body, so if you speak a blessing, it's going to make those crystals beautiful. But if you condemn somebody with your words, then they're going to have stunted. The water in their body will be stunted. So I just found that fascinating, in line with to bless and not curse.
Yeah, I haven't heard that about the body before, about the more water, less water, all of that. We actually were just talking about that. Was it? Yeah. That your words have power. And I'm going to add to this that what you tell yourself also has power, right? Those words, the self-talk, just so stupid, I can't believe it, blah, 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 like whatever it is, or, okay, I'm learning from these mistakes, I'm growing as a person, I'm still a work in progress, and God is helping me to grow and be transformed into His image. Like, not, man, I'm the greatest thing, and I should be blah, 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 and gosh darn it, people like me. But that our words and our thoughts have power even to ourselves, right? So, okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up with what you said earlier about does God prefer the younger over the older? And words are powerful. Our words are powerful. God's words really powerful. And I think getting to why God prefers the younger over the older, and it kind of ties into what Rebekah did with her two sons, Esau and Jacob. If you go back to Genesis 25:22, when she was pregnant and she had the twins in her belly, I'll just read it. But the children struggled together within her, and she said, "If so, why then am I this way?" So she went to inquire of the Lord. This is what the Lord said to her. 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples will be separated from your body, and one people shall be stronger than the other, and the older shall serve the younger. That is God's word to Rebekah. And that explains, I think, why she did what she did with the blessings and convincing her son Jacob to get the blessing from her father. It's God's word.
Yeah, that's good. Yes. So I think, Isaac will be next over here in the black jacket. So I think, okay. Yes, I see that and I agree with that, and I'm trying to decide if I'm going to let it go. Basically, I'm thinking of the idea that God relies on us for His will in some regard. Okay, if I don't step up, just as Mordecai told Esther, salvation and deliverance will arise from the Jewish people from somewhere else. God will find somebody else to do His work. His will and His ends will come to pass. But He has, I don't know why, but He has decided to limit Himself to, in some regard, to partner with people. And so I'm thinking that is a demonstration of that with that situation with Rebekah. Okay, Isaac.
Is this on? Okay. So I'm glad that he read that because that's part of it. I don't think that God prefers the younger. I think that in that instance it was prophesied first, and that's why it came to be. But the other thing about the firstborn, In Exodus 13:2, it says, "Consecrate to me every firstborn, man and beast. The first issue of every womb among the Israelites is mine." He claims it. So that's also why it is the way that it is.
All right, Tracy, and then I think we're going to be done.
Scripture also provides for the inheritance to be altered. Let's say if you have an unruly son, he could be completely cut out of the inheritance. So while the firstborn is granted a double portion, the firstborn can also be cut out of the inheritance.
Yeah. So it's possible. But do we see? I don't know if we ever have an example of it actually happening. It's possible. So I think that's what you're saying, is that it is possible that the firstborn could be cut out if he is. Didn't Reuben what? He got an inheritance. I mean, he got something. He was. Yeah. He got a curse, right? Your superiority will end. Yeah. So there's your example. The firstborn can get cut out, and Reuben was. All right. So on that note. All right, let's go ahead and stand. And we are going to actually I'm going to read the last. Do we have the blessing for the end of the? Hey, nope. Sorry, that's not it. At the end. Oh, you know what? Yeah, give it to him. Thank you. All right, can you give Eloise a hand? She did great. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to read the last verse of the book, and then the Hazak, Vinny Hazak. Okay, can we get that up? All right, so let's read the last verse while they are looking for that. So Genesis chapter 50, verse 26. So Yosef died at the age of 110, and they embalmed him and put him in a coffin in Egypt. Hazak, Venit, Chazek. Be strong, and let us strengthen one another. Amen. Hallelujah.